I just hit go live. I usually go live a couple minutes beforehand, as you both might know,
Just no.
just to get the stream going and to check the volume. Is the volume good? The stream going and to check. Yep, volume's good. I can hear myself just fine.
You're a terrible faker.
Yeah, not to mention the 10 minutes we just went through with the audio. Because that was fun.
Yeah, actually, to be fair, talk about a very ill-placed joke.
I think I have everything. Well, Twitter's not up, right?
Nope, it just went up again. I just
just went up. Okay.
Oh, okay. I just need to send that link out.
And I will post on mine as well.
I will do so too.
Okay.
Well, mine is. I think I've only got like 10 followers, if that. So mine's basically pissing in the wind.
I have 95, so we might get one person, but it's more about work ethic. Like, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. No,
well, my philosophy is like, as long as we're having fun, I'm pretty happy with it. Like, I know that we have like one or two fans that are like really dedicated, and they give a lot of awesome feedback and stuff like that. And those people I try to hone into and try to respond to them and stuff like that, because like that's who's gonna give us like the honest opinion too. I think. Like those one or two people that do like come back and tell us what's going on. That's why, like, Rorik, whenever you comment and stuff like that, I really do like take it to heart, and it's like, okay, what do we need to do better? I can ask Rorik. He's very honest, and I love it. So it's like, that's why it's like, now I need him on this live stream, because I love how he talks, and I love how he like analyzes everything. So thank you for coming
Honestly,
up on this.
I tend to rub people the wrong way often, because my first impression is always a bit abrasive, and I kind of do that on purpose, because I like being around people who can handle me when I'm being an ass just to have fun. And if they can't handle that, then what ends up happening is I develop these close friendships with people, and then the day I decide to joke around, they get super offended and they get hurt, and I feel bad, and I feel like I have to tiptoe around them, and you don't want to tiptoe around your friends.
No,
So
that's not.
whenever I'm joking around in your live stream, that's just me pushing buttons for the fun of it. If that ever bothers you, though, let me know, because it's easily toned down.
Like, the worst thing that could happen if you were like mean, and I don't think you're ever a mean person, like the worst thing that could happen, I think, is that me saying, okay, yeah, this is how we need to fix it, this is what we need to fix, and I start going into like, how can I be more productive mode? So it's like, if anybody, not Rorik, but if anybody else said anything negative, I'd be like, okay, that's a negative comment, but how can I turn it into a positive? How can I turn it into something that we can work with and have fun with later on? That's hard to do, especially when your pride gets involved.
Well, I say that subjectively. See, I grew up in a much... Well, let's not talk about how I grew up, but I'm used to very abrasive and frankly quite negative people. And our way of showing love, and or not even showing love, our way of interacting is go fuck yourself. Like, whenever I'm used to saying something negative for the sake of fun and giggles, and then someone literally tell me to go fuck myself, and that's our interaction, that's our friendship. But I don't know, as I've grown up, that's just like slowly phased out of my life. But I feel like we're entering a sort of transitional period where language is getting sucked into a vice, and it's kind of harder to say things.
Oh yeah, it's hard to be a comedian these days.
Hey everyone, time for the stream. Come watch us talk about monsters. Joey agreed to stream. Thumbs up. All right. Oh, hold on. I need a link.
What a weird time to require a vegetable.
A vegetable?
A link.
Oh, a leak.
Leak.
What a link. All right. Hold on.
He could say link.
Hashtag give Farfetch'd an evolution. It pisses me off that Farfetch'd not an evolution. Farfetch'd deserves an evolution.
Farfetch'd does not deserve an evolution.
Yes, he does.
Hashtag controversy.
Oh, fuck your controversy. I'm right. understand that.
And this
You know
is why
what?
we're
I'm going
friends
to
with
use
Rory.
that. I'm going to use that. Next time I see someone saying something controversial, I'm just going, you know what? Fuck your controversy. I'm right. Hashtag things Rorik has said.
Yeah, you have to quote Rorik. It's not Rorik. 2019.
Oh, we'll get so much hatred.
Hey, we're gonna
So
get
much
attention.
love.
I thought about that too, like responding to different tweets that I don't agree with online. But it's like I would get so much negative feedback, and it would be the group too. And I'm like, but wait, we would get attention. So it's like,
There's
it all
no
worth?
such thing as bad rep, and that is so wrong. Or it was no such thing as bad attention, or something like that, and that's so wrong because
Yeah.
prison has an answer for that.
Cool. Well, it is 3:03 where I am. 3:03 where Rorik is. I think you said you were Central Standard Time, and then it is 9:03 where Joe is.
Yay!
Yay. Cool.
Hey, Bill has sent out the other messages in the Discord chats.
Sure.
My room will not subconsciously be associated with trash. That's why I cover the trash.
Just go.
I had such a mean thing to say.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with announcements real quick before we get started. This Friday, July 12th from 8 to 11 Central Standard Time, we have the Waterdeep. That's the Dragon Heist one with Jerry as our DM. And then a week from that, July 19th from 8 to 11, we're going to have Pathfinder, aka 3.75 D&D. And that is also going to be with Jerry as the DM. Sunday, we are going to have July 21st. We're going to have a one-shot, and Joe will be a player, and we're going to have special guest Aiden with us. So we're going to be doing a Hispanic culture kind of celebration. I know Aiden had talked about, when we talked to him, kind of bringing the Hispanic culture into D&D, or D&D to the Hispanic culture, because there's not a lot, he said. So we're going to try to help him with that. So we have a really good story. I have a really good story. I'm really proud of it. It's going to be a serious story. It's going to be kind of different from what we're used to with comedy in this group, but we'll see if we can do it. And we are going to be using from now on Joe's system, which is the Animite Tales RPG system. And then I'll let Joe talk about that later, or throughout the live streams as well. But the the biggest announcement we have was actually inspired by Rorik, who's our special guest today. Rorik had an excellent suggestion yesterday, and I literally jumped on it. I was like, yes, this is good. It's the 12D20 Discord community channel. This is brand new. It launched 1 o'clock in the a.m. my time because I worked on it last night. And Rorik, let me go through it. Let me know how it looks and stuff like that. I'm still getting used to Discord a lot. So definitely know what I can work on, what can change if the organization's fine.
Like I was surprised at how quick you set this thing up. Few things.
Go ahead.
It's a bit of there's a bit of a disconnect in communication here. Under General tab, you have something called Easy Links. I have no idea what Easy Links are.
Easy Links is like link to our website, link to Facebook, link to our Twitter, or link to our. It's all of our links.
Yeah. First of all, take that down. Okay. And under Des, and I believe under the server name, you can actually on your account you can list links to your social media. Like for example, if you click Item Pouch, if you click that and then you click View Profile, you'll actually see all the links to my stuff. That's the way people on Discord usually find it.
Oh, I was thinking about putting that there. That way they have It's just
if you want to keep it there, and if you think you find it effective, sure, that works too.
Okay. Yeah, that way they don't have to look all over it. They don't have to hover my name and find profile.
Instead of calling it Easy Links, though, just call it social media. That way.
That'll work. Yeah, let me change it right now.
But there were links that were easy.
Well, who cares?
No.
Too late. Already changed. Sorry.
That reminds me of
social
something.
Media. There we go.
See, they were that easy. They were that easy that they can be changed. Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
That reminds me of something my GM told me, or well, it was either my GM or Dom. When I first started this project, I asked him why was even willing to get involved in this, because I was really confused. Nobody wanted to help me. Everyone thought my idea was stupid. And
Now, what idea are you talking about first?
the show.
The show.
Yeah. So he said, I liked your fuck your reality, I substitute my own mentality. And I felt so happy about that because one, he captured the way I think, and two, it showed me that he was willing to stay on my project.
Mhm.
And it's literally been like a fucking year, man. It's taken forever. We're almost ready though.
Oh, one of the things I wanted to ask, I don't know if I asked it. Do you have a link that we can share on Twitter, on our Discord channel of where your channel is? So you have a show, right?
It's in production where we're making it.
Okay.
So yeah, the show hasn't launched yet. It will on YouTube. I suggest just send people to my Twitter because you could send them to my YouTube, but that's not going to interest them. At least on my Twitter, they can see it in development, and then when it does launch, it's like, hey, it finally launched. It took fucking forever.
Do y'all have a good idea of when it's going to be launched, or is that still
not certain yet? Let's see. I still have to finish rigging our templates. And then I have to animate the pilot. So it could be another month or two. Worst case. Plus, we're waiting on. Well, we're not really losing time on that, but we're waiting on my DM because he's been on a hiatus for about half a month for his wedding. So yeah, the answer is I don't know.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, we're gonna definitely keep an eye on that. And definitely let us know on Twitter, Discord, whatever, private message us, so that as soon as it launches, we can be there to support you.
As soon as it does, I'm gonna try and rally everyone and see if I can get like a bunch of D&D people to share it, because that first episode's gonna be like, okay, this is make or break it. Will they like our show or not?
Yeah.
Sending out all the tweets.
It's like, what was it called? There's a phrase for it. Never mind. Whatever.
Rally the troops.
Yes, that's it. Rally the troops.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that was.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the phrase that means get everyone on your side and to do something.
You did. The weird thing is, the reason I didn't think that was it is because you did even say, "Yeah, rally everyone together." I was thinking he's got this. He would have thought of that.
So those of you that are just joining us, we are live with Rourke, who, as a lot of people know, as Item Pouch. And how I met you was through Ben's Dungeon World game.
Yeah.
And that's how we met Aiden, too.
Honestly, I wasn't too happy with the Dungeon World game. I think I'm spoiled because the system we created for our show is based off Dungeon World.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, we used it as a starting point. I don't think it's anything like Dungeon World now, except for the names and the mechanics, a few of them. But our system moves lightning fast, and it's like so cinematic and cool. And then I played Dungeon World, and I was like, okay, I'm finally gonna get to play the system my system was based off of. And I was like, things are sure taking a while.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
this is why it was modded.
Like I'm probably one of the people that slowed it down a lot. I was new to Dungeon World. I didn't know. I was asking a lot of questions, so that might have been it. You have people that don't know the system at all.
Don't blame yourself, because I am familiar with the system now. It was a multitude of factors. I think most of it. I think it really was. Ben was just new to the system. Like it was his second at it.
I don't know what he said.
It wasn't so much what he was doing, so much as what he wasn't doing to navigate the story, to push players in a way. For example, there was a point where I think our party actually split, and that's rule one: don't split the party. But that's kind of on us.
Again, that was my suggestion, to split the party. I was like, I'm gonna go up the stairs, and everybody else wants to do that, and I'm like, I'm still going up the stairs.
Yeah, I think I
so
was.
So you say not to blame myself, but I'm like, I was the cause of that one.
So, Des, you're telling me that you, in this scenario, you were the one who split the party.
Who went with me?
When have you ever done that?
I think I eventually joined you, and I wanted the giant cat. I wanted the cat to help us, but we couldn't do it, and I was sad about that. So it was a fun idea.
Well, my character's name was Mouse, and you have this giant cat. Were you the one that like leaped onto the cat and went toward the village?
Oh yeah, that was at the end of the session.
Yeah, see, so in my mind, you were going to take that monster, and this is what the show's about today. You were going to take that monster and destroy. To me, in my character, thought that was a monster attacking the town. But as soon as I said I shoot at the cat, everybody simultaneously said no. I was like, it's a giant cat. And then you had to come in and be like, oh no, and you gave like this excellent explanation. I'm like, fine. Cat lives.
Well, it is just a cat. I mean, why are you trying to hurt it?
That you were taking to destroy the town.
That's not. Well, it's not the master of the tower. It's the fucking cat of the master. It's like.
Well,
okay. You go to an evil druid's lair, and he's also a necromancer. Because why not? He's raising the dead. You go there. And instead of killing him, you shoot his dog. Like, who is really the one in that situation? Because I'm pointing at the dog killer.
I don't care. You know what? If I got druid dog killer as like something on my title, I'd do it. I'd take it. I don't care.
And this is why we love Joe's stories.
You see a dog. Is there anything else? No, you see a dog. It suddenly creates fire.
Does it look tasty?
Please don't make me fight the dog.
One of my favorite things in like any of these is to any system is to try to eat things that make people upset. Like that's one of my favorite things because it doesn't matter who you're playing with. People are really upset with cannibalism for some reason. And I'm like, really? What's the thing that bothers you?
I think cannibalism, no. Eating an ostrich that, to be honest, wasn't even dead before eating it. Like someone then decided to kill it with a rock.
I've already repressed that member. I don't know what you're talking about.
You killed an ostrich with a rock. Why did you? What is it with you and killing innocent animals?
It wasn't cooperating with me.
What was it?
It fell down a hole that was created by an earthquake.
What?
In a desert country.
Was this a mercy killing or was this just a killing?
It was fine afterwards, and she just went, threw the rock at it.
Why are you killing animals?
Apparently to gain rock proficiency, which succeeded.
Well, I'm glad you got that stat boost.
Kill the dragonfly later.
Okay, it was a monstrous dragonfly.
Oh no! Definitely, I'm on your side with this one.
Yeah,
it nearly killed me.
Yeah, it was killing you. So today's topic is monsters and encounters. But first, I wanted to ask you so about your animations, real quick. Anything that you can say is like, what is your favorite kind of things to animate, or like, how did you get your inspiration to do this project with your group? If you're able to say that. I know it hasn't been launched yet, but I wanted to know.
Spoilers.
Honestly, I wouldn't say anything specific inspired it. I was kind of at a low point. I had my skills in animation. I was doing nothing with them because there's no work for that where I live. And I was stuck in a position with no money, and I was like, I gotta do something. So I figured, okay, you know what I want to do? I want my own show. Like, it's stupid, but it is what I want. And I was talking with my friend about this at the time, and he says, "What are you going to name it?" And I'm like, I don't know. It started off as a YouTube channel. That was the idea. I didn't even know what I wanted to make. I just like, okay, I want a show, and obviously YouTube is the medium to do that. And honestly, Item Pouch didn't start as this big inspired idea to create a D&D thing. Though that was not the initial idea. It was just make a channel with a cool name. And I was bitching because I was angry because all the good names were taken. So I created a list of all the names I think would be applicable to my interests, and Item Pouch was one of them. And as I was complaining over the phone to my friend Chris, I was checking them. I'm like, none of these work. None of these work. No. Item Pouch just came through clean. And so I checked it on all the social media, and nobody had taken it. And it's like an actual gamer term from Monster Hunter. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I snatched it. And then for a few months, I was thinking, okay, let's try Let's Plays. And the more I tried Let's Plays, the more I was like, I am so much better than this. Why am I wasting my time on this? And so then I got into this huge freaking debate over what our show should be with Chris, my friend. And I'm like, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to create a semi-animated show with that somehow improvised, because I like the comedy that comes from improv, and I find that interesting. A few days later, I told this to someone, and they suggested tabletop RPGs, and I'm like, Dungeons and Dragons. And now this is where the I'm new to this stuff aspect comes in, because believe it or not, I actually am much newer to this stuff than you think. So I looked into it, and I fell in love with it like on the spot. And the next few months was just nothing but research, just learning. I just dove right into it. And the more I dove into tabletop RPGs, the more I was like, oh God, I gotta make a show. I gotta make the best show out of this. And that's how Table Team kind of rose from my decrepit, boring living on low income ashes. So I got a job that can get me home sooner than most people, so I can spend more time animating. I concocted this idea for a show that shifts between animation and tabletop RPG playing. And then I saw Harmon Quest, and I was like, I don't get to be the first one to do this.
Yes, I love Harmon Quest.
Now, on one hand, I was so happy because I was like, oh my God, it works. Like, I didn't even think this was going to work. I was just trying it. And then I was like, it works. It actually works. And then I heard Dan Harmon talk about how this show should not exist, how impossible. And I was like, how hard can it be? And then months went by, and I was like, man, it is so freaking hard to do this. And eventually, I was like, okay, I need help. I need to figure out how to actually get this done. So I pulled together a team. I went to like all these tabletop RPG Reddits, and this is where I experienced the hate. Everyone freaking hated this idea. Nobody believed in it.
What? Hate on Reddit?
It wasn't just Reddit at first. At first, I tried on Discord. I went for Discord servers because that's what I was familiar with. On Reddit, I found some level of acceptance. But then the reply was always, what are you going to pay us? And I'm like, it's a YouTube project.
Yeah.
Like, I'm offering, you don't understand what I'm offering. I'm offering my skills as an animator to literally create a show out of a game you play. Your input is so minimal. Like, what do you lose by taking part in this? A few hours of your time, some fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's gold. Like, we have an animator that I'm working with too, but she has a degree and she has a full-time job, but to actually have her name is Jen, is golden. Like, that is like, she is a treasure to our team because she is so skilled. It's like, and I feel bad. It's like, I want to pay her, I want to reward her in some way, but she's like, oh no, that's cool, I can totally do this. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, having an animator for free. That's amazing.
It's like the reverse situation with you. Because you're starting it and you have her on your team.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to start it. Mm-hmm. I was the team. And I was like, God damn it, guys. The voice talent too. And I told them, like, look, guys, I don't know if this is going to work, but if it does work, yeah, I'll pay you. Of course I'll pay you. Like, this is a passion project. I just want to see it through. And I had to slowly get better and better at selling the idea. And then I ended up on this Reddit for Dungeon World. And I didn't know this at the time, but the first guy to jump on my idea, he was actually one of the mods of that Reddit, Primarch the Mage, Spencer. He ended up becoming a GM. And before I knew it, he helped kind of guide the idea. I'd say his biggest contribution, which was suggested by another person, but was to not use Dungeon World, but to use an amalgamation of hacks and then to tweak it in a way that works for our needs. Create a cinematic-based system that's simple and fast. That way, you don't have to edit out everything that isn't important. It just isn't part of the game. So there are certain caveats with our system. as a result. Like, for example, if you're poisoned, there is no poison over time or turn damage or anything like that. It's more like narrative positioning. I don't know if that's already a thing in Dungeon World, but anyway, point is he was a huge help. Then we brought on this guy called Dom. He plays our orc, and then we worked out our voices. And I don't know, this is the most boring version of the story. There's a better way.
Like, you're talking to people like you're talking like me. This is a free project, the 12D20. That's a group of friends that we're just doing this as a hobby. And then, but definitely Joe. I give lots of props to Joe. He, his sleepless nights. He has a full-time job now, and then he just he still comes home and finds time to work on Animite Tales with his brother Will and the cooperative stuff. So it's like I can't understand, but I can't speak for Joe though. But I've seen Joe struggle through some of the Animite Tale stuff and then get through it, but it's still his passion and stuff like that. So you're saying it's a boring part of your story, but it's I've seen that in Joe, and it's not boring at all. It's very inspiring to people around you.
It's definitely not action packed. That's the thing. A lot of people think a project is always the best times, or it's always the worst times until it's
boring and it's long.
And it's very long. It's very long. And this project has been almost 3 years old now. It is almost 3 years old. When I first came up with it, funnily enough, I was in a really boring relationship. I was coming back from something. I was on a train, and I was just suddenly listening to a podcast by Team 4-Star, and it was this one guy, Takahata 101, and Chris Sito, and they were talking about their Unexpectables or something like that, and they were talking about it for a while. I was thinking, oh, Dungeons and Dragons sounds pretty cool. And then when I got back to Cambridge, I was speaking to a friend of mine called Kane, and he was talking to me about here's Dungeons and Dragons. He brought 3 books, these massive books, and one of them was Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And he was just showing me all of these different player classes. Then he was showing me a couple of other things, so monsters and creatures. And he was showing me how things work. And he got me into it. And there it is. He got me into it, and so I was like, no, that's really cool. But I had this idea where you have a superhero and you are a powerful character in this world full of people who have superpowers, and you have to make yourself as an individual that stands out either as a villain or as a hero or as just a citizen just trying to get by. And he just went, I think that could work. He didn't mess with me. He didn't say anything else. He just said, I think it could work. I'm pretty sure there are other games out there that do that, but what do you have that brings it to the table that makes it? And that's when I started crafting the lore, crafting the world, and ever since then, it's my brother and I, years ago, we tried to come up with something, and it was we needed to come up with the story. And at one point, the story was just this simple thing of there's a finite object that they were trying to find in the world, and we were this object connects with people on a strange level that you can't physically explain. It just has some kind of weird connection to you. And we were what was the Latin word for soul? And it was anima. And then we were well, what if we just shorten that word and then create say it as if it's a stone, so animite. And so animite is actually in the lore of the world. It's actually a piece of what's left over from the universe that was created. Basically, it is a soul gem. It is a thing that is basically from the heart of a universe. And that's when it came from the Animite Tales. It's a multiverse. It has so many different ways that it can be told, and we have 3 different books that we've already created for it in the terms of the templates of the stories. We just need to currently make those books mechanically and actually come up with all of the different quests, so that it's actually structured well. And also the structure is terrible. Des can hold up to that. She knows how bad it is, but
that's why I came in as editor.
There you go. But yeah, it is exactly that. It's not everything is super fun.
But it is
not always super fun.
It is a very fun RPG. Like I wouldn't even touch it as editor if I didn't believe in it, if I didn't like it at all as an RPG system. And that's how I met Joe, trying to find ways for my team to have fun with like one shots. And because we tried Fate Core system, I didn't like that. D&D takes too long on for me on encounters, and so it's like I wanted something that was could adjust to my RPG style when it comes to storytelling, as well as my players will have fun kicking the crap out of something.
Speaking to the nicheness of that system, that's something I learned pretty quick when I was trying to figure out what I want to get out of not my show, but the future of my channel. I what I landed on is well, I want to make at least one monster manual because I love making monsters and I'm really good at it. So I want to do that. But more than that, I want to create a system. And I learned really quick, I can't do this quickly. I can't dive into that. I have to slowly look at what I want to make and really figure it out. And what I landed on was I want to make a system that takes everything I love about the system we use for our show and makes it work as more of a game people can play rather than a game played for a show. The idea being that it takes mechanics which are normally complex, take a lot of time, and it makes them quicker, snappier, and incentivizes more cinematic, fast-paced combat with unique solutions. Basically, badassness is what our system excels at. It's weird to say it that way, but it does. Like between you and me, at the end of the first episode, Roth, he beats the monster by calling back his soul sword, and it decapitates the monster as it fucking destructo discs back into the head. It's fucking badass.
Perfection.
So I was like, man, what if Dungeons and Dragons could be like that?
That's pretty much exactly how we built our system for Animite Tales. We have a reaction system where it's like you get the chance to be able to like do something even though that you're the person that's attacking. We don't have any AC, we don't have armor classes. Mm-hmm. We have defense, like if you have an armor or some kind of thing that grants you defense or resistance or immunity, then you just take less damage when you do get hit by an attack. But yeah, in the terms of it, like it's all down to what you want to use, whether you want to use your superpowers, whether you want to use your dexterity or your strength, your bare hands, your physical capabilities of blocking, defending, dodging, or evading an attack, and then potentially getting a free hit back if you get a high enough roll. That's the sort of thing that we did. So it's fast paced. It still works in the forms of like a lot of dice rolls. And the people who have higher modifiers obviously get the greater advantage, but there are certain powers that sometimes just knock away the whole system of that and just say like, if I get this roll, then I'm out of the clearing. I'm fine. But yeah, it's we have a system that works similar to that. Like because we on about 2-3 years ago, we were like, I was thinking, what's a system that makes it badass and that makes it like fast-paced, cinematic? It feels like you're in a movie. And I would be lying if I didn't say that like my main inspiration didn't come from like comic books and video games and anime. But also,
it sounds like we're heading down similar paths. I'm taking a fantasy approach. It sounds like you're definitely leaning towards the superhero aspect.
Yeah, that is what at the moment anyway. That's where it's going for now.
Anyway, so I was discussing with my friend this with my friend. I'm like, I kind of laid it, but like that's part of what I'm making in my system, but it's not the whole thing. So we were trying to figure out what to call it, and now granted, this hasn't gone into development yet. Like I will make this because even I could be poor on the street. I will make this. I don't care if it doesn't sell. I want it. And so we were discussing what to call it, and I was like, well, what's a good name for a badass story? Because that's essentially what we're creating, a system that facilitates badass stories. He tossed out the name Odyssey, and I'm like, well, that's probably taken. And I'm like, what about epics? And he's like, well, that's probably taken. I'm like, yeah. not taken.
Really? Epix is not
Yep.
taken.
Epix is not taken.
Take it.
There is
Take it.
the Epic. I already got it.
Good.
Trademark pending. But well, not the trademark yet, but it's gonna be. Like I've already acquired the name and there's obviously you can't get the problem with the reason nobody picks that name is because it's hard to market. Because the Twitter's already taken, the website's already taken. Obviously they're taken. But that's because the only people who are trying to market it are old people who don't know how to create a better name for it on Twitter, and I do. So I already did that, and I'm not going to say what the name is yet. I've secured it, but the game is called Epix, and what my goal is to get Table Team popular, get Item Pouch popular, and get all these people backing it, and to encourage collaboration with other channels, particularly anyone big in D&D and animation. And then once I get my system to a point that I think it should start being play tested, I will bring these people into my circle and I'll be like, hey, we're all big YouTubers. What would I tell you if I had a system I've been working on for like 3 years that's really fucking cool, and I want you guys to play test it, and we can make a big YouTube thing out of it. We could all make some money, maybe even sell a pretty cool product. My hope is that I can earn enough goodwill with these people and prove myself among them enough to where they'll be like, yeah, we'll try your system. And then maybe I can get people like Taking 20 and Puffin Forest and Dingo Doodles to all try it. And it's nice to have a good system and a good Kickstarter. It's much nicer to have other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Particularly big people who are interested in it, invested in it, and give it their stamp of approval.
Very true.
So that is my several-year-long master plan to create a famous system.
So I'm gonna pick y'all's brains for this topic, which was monsters.
Oh yeah,
and,
sorry.
And as you were talking about, you said you loved creating monsters, but from a player standpoint, from a player, and Joe definitely, I'd love for you to answer this question too. From a player standpoint, what do you expect in a monster? Like, what do you think, like when we talk about badassery, we talk about encounters and how to approach it with a really cool, a style and a way. From the RPG tabletop platforms that you guys have both experienced, you can give some examples on good ones that you've already encountered, or ones that, as a player from in mind, what do you expect as like an amazing monster?
Terror. Like literally like a terrifying monster. Something that is actually scary to you as a player, not potentially necessary as the character. Like, because you might be a character who never fears anything or isn't afraid of this particular creature. But as a player, if you suddenly hear, and so its scaly form moves, you notice that its large legs, and it's like, how large are these legs? It's like 10 meters tall. It's like, how large is the rest of this body? You see as the shadow of what you thought was a house has now appeared, as it turns out to be a large dragon. It's like that kind of thing where it's like you're thinking, like, as the description goes on, or even as like you suddenly like get attacked by something, terror, fear in the hearts of your players is something so necessary, because the whole point of it is like monster.
So so mainly like the description.
Well, either the description or just like its capability to strike fear into the hearts of its prey. Like, for instance, like it could be something that immediately jumps out and is like, you don't get a full description of it, or something that is not necessarily like high description because it's not needed. Like, for instance, in Animite Tales, a lot of things either are mutated or it has a power. So in other words, it could be a creature like, oh, it's a dog that turns into like a bear or something. We have these things called shifters, which are literally any creature that has then the innate ability to either turn into an inanimate object, so they're called mimic shifters, or just basically just like we have mimics and then we have shifters, and basically the mimics are actual animals that have gained the ability to turn into an object that their most normal, natural sort of habitat. So, for instance, like a bear, like when it's hibernating, turns into a giant rock. And so it's literally a giant rock. And if someone hits it or cracks it, it then like could potentially like appear and open up, and then it's a bear that's now attacking you. Or shifters, we actually have like animals that are like, it's a rabbit, but to make sure that it can defend itself, it then could turn into like a fox or a wolf or something. So therefore, it's like if it's cornered, it then turns into something more ferocious. We also have abominations, which are basically like creatures that are entirely like malformed and weirdly grotesque. We have anthropials, which are human hybrids with animals, which are basically like their main thing is that they're humanoid animals, like a bit like raccoon, like Rocket Raccoon from Marvel, and you've got a couple of other ones from DC that are like human animal hybrids. But it's like they look mostly like their animal counterpart, but they stand on two legs like humans. They have the ability of human speech and understanding. That's that. And then we have like Gwedins, which are basically like the opposite. Instead of humans that have got slight animal capabilities or animals that have got slight human capabilities, it's creatures like animals that have basically been horrifically mutated to the point of which they're almost sort of zombie-like. They don't really have any human capability of speech. They look human, but they have animalistic minds. They are almost like golems from like Lord of the Rings. That's what they look like. They sometimes have one or two abilities. They can have like either acidic blood or like long freakish tongues. They can actually shed their own skin to regenerate parts of their body. They can do all sorts of really weird and creepy stuff. And they're incredibly fast. And so we have all sorts of different like weird and crazy creatures. But the fear is one of the biggest things when you've got monsters that are your opponents. But I think the second thing that's most important about a creature is world building. Like, how are they used? Like if a monster is an enemy, then definitely fear. Like, need fear, because you need the player to suddenly want to go, I don't want to fight this thing. And it's like, okay, then how do you solve this problem? Whereas, like, I remember one of my first ever encounters in Animite Tales that I was surprised about, because my brother, he's amazing at world building, and he's amazing at coming up with like sadistic creatures that could be a problem. And my guy had the ability of becoming slime, and so he had immunity to all physical forms of damage, but he wasn't immune to elements, and his biggest weakness was being wet. If he got too wet, then he basically just be a puddle, and he would have to wait until he dried off a little bit before he could even form himself properly. There was a rainstorm, because he rolled for the weather, and there was a rainstorm, so my guy immediately had to turn back into his human form. And then there was a tornado, and I was like, what is this? And he went, you'll find out. And it turned out that it was a dragonfly that had like a high level of aerokinesis. And so that's why it makes it interesting, because you can have a creature that has like this weird ability, and then you like give it some other kind of like weird mutation. Like, for instance, the dragonfly was about as big as, I think it was like as big as like a large wolf or something like that. I think he said it was like as big as a large dog, or like a pony or something like that. So it's like, it was really like, its exoskeleton was really quite thick.
And thanks to that rock proficiency, I was able to take it down.
Exactly. Thanks to Micah and her murderous rock proficiency, she was able to kill it very, very, very weirdly quickly. But yeah, exactly. That's exactly the thing. Like, the terrifying thing about that was not that it was a bug; it was the fact that it was using an environmental ability. I was getting flung around.
Yeah.
Like, I was taking damage whilst in the tornado. I was getting flung around. And
didn't your character throw up?
Yeah, he threw up. Yeah, he threw up in his own face.
What's going around?
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah, so that was fun. But that's the thing. Like, you know, there's all sorts of weird monsters and creatures that can be evil and can be bad. But then you've also got the ones that like we have like Felpigari. And they're just these giant like coyote creatures that are like bigger than horses, and you can get like 2 or 3 people mounted on them. They're similar to that of direwolves, where like they're huge and people can ride on them, but they're actually more desert-like creatures, and they sort of like they're sort of like the between sort of direwolves and camels, so like desert direwolves. but they're more like coyote-looking creatures.
So Rorik, same. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say we have all sorts, but go on.
So Rorik, same question from a player's point of view. What is like a really good monster that you would want to? So that was a really good answer. Like Joe had mentioned, fear. Definitely, I like that one.
I think to me, fear is obviously an important aspect. What I look for in a great monster is the care and attention to the monster itself in various aspects of its creation and how it's implemented in the world. Now, fear is obviously an ever-present thing. You need fear because it's a fucking monster. If you're not afraid of it, sorry for cursing. It's a monster. If you're not afraid of it, then it's not a monster. I don't care how big and scary it is. The ethos of a monster is that it strikes fear into one's heart and it motivates one to a call to action or a call to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
So, but it can be a slow kind of fear. It doesn't have to be impactful. For example, last December, I was talking with my mom, and she saw that I was creating monsters for the show. Normally, I create these fun little pun style monsters, and then I give them more depth. But this time, I was doing a little experiment, creating more serious monsters, starting from the ground up. It's inspired by German fairy tale folklore. The kind of stuff where thumbs get bitten off and just weird monsters. And she says, "Oh, that's neat. Can you make one based off me?" And I didn't know what I was making. So given the opportunity for a little comedy, of course I said yes. 30 minutes later, I come back. I'm like, "Okay, Mom, I got something. It's called a Nagul." And she says, "Ooh, that sounds like something from Harry Potter." And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a maternal spirit that upon death clings to its corpse and survives by sucking the youth out of village children. It can wield them like zombies, and it's not afraid to lash out at people." And she stops me right there, and she's like, "How is that like me?" And not seeing the wordplay of nag and ghoul,
Yeah.
I told her, "Well, no, you see, allegory for moms who suck the life out of their children." She wasn't very happy about that. But the point is that that's a cool enough monster, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like a hack. What makes it interesting and makes it an engaging encounter is in how it's placed in the world and how it's executed in the narrative. If I just ran into a Naggle, I'd be like, "Oh, Naggle, okay." But if I were investigating the disappearance of children in a village and the woman who brought this to my attention turned out to be the Naggle, and that's how it happens. Like you're in a dark cabin, you finally track down the monster. She's guided us there, and we asked the DM like, "Well, where's the monster?" And he's like, you see a shadow eerily creep up above you, and the whole time he was using the monster to lead us into the stage for the fight. This didn't happen. I'm just giving a scenario in which this monster can be used effectively. So to me, making a great monster is about more than making a great monster. It's about creating an exceptional encounter. Even the most mundane monster can be done in that way, but personally, I'm an artist. I like great design. I don't really care for them in mundane. That's why I like making my own monsters. Even though we never get to freaking use them.
You will someday.
My GM, he likes to look at pictures of stuff that's cool, and he makes a monster based off that, and he makes some pretty good stuff. But I'm really good at this. I wish that we could use my stuff, but we can't because I know what it is and I know its weaknesses, and it's just a metagame nightmare. So what's going to end up happening is once I start doing the epic system, I'll be DMing that, and then I'll get to use my monsters.
I volunteer myself to be a player in that. I want to see what kind of monsters you can create.
I'll let you in on it. It's
I want to see.
Yeah, I know there's a monster you wanted me to talk about today, and I promise I will. Yes, the warehouse. Anyway, so how do I put this information in a more concise, clear way? To me, a great monster is only as good as its encounter. A dragon is boring if you just happen upon a dragon. You need substance. And that also extends to the monster itself, particularly in its abilities and its ecology and its aspects. If we could get into creature discussion for just a moment, this isn't technically a monster, but you can tell when someone put a lot of love and care into the creation of a creature. It just
Oh
shows.
yeah.
For example, I created this thing called a chlorophyll. The idea was it's a type of butterfly that inhabits dead trees and brings them back to life.
Okay.
Their wings look like leaves, and whenever a tree is supposed to be in bloom, their wings change colors. So the idea is
Oh,
you walk up to a tree and it look like a tree, but it's all freaking chlorophylls.
oh
And
wow.
the idea for this creature is that it feeds on the sap of the tree, and the chlorophylls themselves, excuse me, they can be crushed down and used for herbs in apothecaries, or healing potions in apothecaries. And that kind of became the basis for how apothecaries work in this fictional world I'm inventing. Um, and then I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was an alternate version of this that was bad? So then the chlorophylls came along, and they work in an inverse way to the chlorophylls. That instead of getting their energy from photosynthesis and helping nurture the tree, they parasitize. They're parasitic to the tree, and they're used for poisons. Um, so just little things like that, even in the small creatures, I like to see some kind of connection to the ecology of the world around it. If I feel like this creature fits in this world and lives off its plants and its rocks and its people, I don't know why I eat rocks, but whatever. Then it just really brings me into the experience, and it makes me appreciate the monster for more than just being a challenge.
Mhm.
It makes me
Yeah.
appreciate it as a part of the world, and that's what I look for in a monster. I look for something that if it hadn't been attacking me, I'd still appreciate it.
So as you guys were both talking about, the different descriptions of monsters coming out, when it comes to the responsibility of the DM and or GM or narrator, one question that I had thought up, and I'll give an example of one of the encounters from me. So, what is the best surprise monster you've ever encountered? And for me, I have to give props to our DM Jerry. So, so we had my character named Helga. She has she values family more than anything. And they were going into a house where a woman said, "Oh, my husband's being attacked. My son was attacked." And we go into this house, and it's quiet. So it's like he set the tone for a surprise. So it's like, okay, what are we gonna do here? And then on the floor, face down, was the dad, and his head was in a hole. And then my character, like he took that feel of my character being so family valued. It's like, oh my god, the dad, and she loves her dad so much, and so it's like, okay, I'm gonna take the dad out of the hole, because that's quote unquote what my character would do, is try to figure out if he's alive. Well, he wasn't. Uh, I took his head out, and then he said, pops out. The way he said it, you have to go, if y'all have time, go watch the last Pathfinder. Go watch that for our team. It popped out this goblin, and the way he did it, it's like I, as a player, like jump back. I'm like, crap, I saw it coming, but it's like it's surprised. Like my heart was already racing as a player. It was like I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming, and I'm sitting there like my team member had her bow and arrow ready. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do this, and it's like the suspense was already there. So the DM created and the monster was a goblin, a simple goblin, and I think that was the best surprise monster I've ever encountered as a player, which was like the way the DM set the tone. So for you guys, both of y'all, as players, what is the best surprise monster you've ever encountered?
Surprise monster. I'd say top two are definitely the sand bear creatures that Bill came up with when we walked out of a royal temple that had been abandoned for like however many decades or something. We were all like bringing this like giant mineral pillar, and as we were bringing it, we then found like these four creatures that are like scorpion bears, and they're massive like furry creatures that actually have like scorpion legs.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like bear claws, but then they also have like a pincer, or not a pincer, they have like a giant like tail that goes down over its head. So they are quite big creatures, and they're quite terrifying. And after we sort of like were fighting a couple, one of our players got like actually died as they bled out to death and then were poisoned to death at the same time. Yeah,
crap.
yeah. You remember Hank? Yeah, can you not remember Hank?
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I was so engulfed in your story, I forgot. Yeah. Okay, so that was that's how Hank died. That's right. It had his leg.
it was a surprise to us all that that we had been ambushed by these kind of creatures, because they were actually quite freakish.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good, because we didn't know that was even a possible creature. And as someone who actually creates a lot of the lore for this world, it's hard for me to be a player now, because seeing a creature is like, ooh, I've never seen this before. I actually mean it. It's hard to do that. But there was that one, and then one of my favorite ones, which was for my players, is that like I did a very naughty thing recently, and I did a homebrew just to sort of like throw them off track. And basically, the way that it worked was that like they were just outside of a shop. They had met this person. His name was Gene, and he was like, "Oh, hey, like what's all of your names?" And they were like, "Why would we tell you our names?" And then one of them went, "I'm Donk." And he said, "Okay." And then one of them just went, "Yeah, I'm Jeremiah. I'm Zar. I'm Katia." And then he just went, "Awesome, I'm Gene. See you later." And they were like, "No, hold on a second." And they were talking to him for about 5 minutes. And eventually, they just let him go, because they had nothing to like base him off. Like there was nothing that he was saying or doing that could prove that he was a bad person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Later that day, they were about to go to one of their favorite stores called Super Fred's, and they were going to meet a guy called Mardi Gras, and he's basically like a gadget master. And so they were just like, "Okay, yeah, we'll go into that. Everyone roll a perception roll." And only 3 people got it, and out of 2 of those people, out of 3 of those people, one of them was a spider made of rock.
Spider made of rock.
Spider made of rock. So just a little bit of a background. My brother has this ability called effigy animation, and he can make golems. And he made a golem that was a rock spider. And basically, he can communicate with them telepathically. And if anyone else wants to talk to them, they have to touch them. And then they can communicate with them telepathically whilst being in tactile contact with them. What happened was that the spider just went, "Master, there's something wrong," and he just went, "No, it's fine." And he just walked right into the store. The two humans, the human and the cyborg, saw in the reflection a weird golden figure floating just behind them, staring at them with dark pupilless eyes. It looked like as if it was a golden statue shaped like a man. Floating about a foot off of the ground and sort of like looking directly at them, and they just went. They went. I turned around really quickly, and it's like nothing's there. when they came out, they then like looked out in front of them, and the superhumans could see them clear as day. The statue was still standing there, and it was staring at them, and it was like, okay, this is weird. The humans could only see it in a reflection. And then they realized, hang on a second, this thing only superhumans can see it. Only beings that have been affected by the radiation can see it. And they were like, well, I guess let's just go meet it. And the biggest one went in first. Now he's got super strength. Nothing has ever been able to defeat him, except from elemental types. Anyone with an element has basically been able to floor him within two to 3 turns. Mm-hmm. He walks in. I describe it as like you take a step off of the pavement, and as you do so, you feel your front leg get kicked back down into the ground as the back of your head is slammed into the concrete, and then you ignite on fire. And they were like, "What is this? What's happening?" And everyone's like freaking out. And they're like, "I run to the next part of the building. You get floored on fire. You get floored on fire." And it's like, what's happening? How fast is this thing? Is it a speedster? What's going on? Can it teleport? They found out that the thing can only move to places that was covered in light. and it basically had a physical form, but only could be seen by superhumans. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it was like immediately teleporting instantaneously to the last thing that moved in somewhere that was covered in light. Eventually, they were able to damage it with their weapons, and they were able to defeat it. But it was that concept of they had to figure it out, and I think that's the surprise there is having a weird, unique, special ability that everyone has to figure out, like a mimic that has like the ability to turn into anything. Like immediately, there's like, quick, kill it. Shit. Where did it go? And it's like, that kind of terrifying, like, what is it sort of moment. Like again with the Nagul thing, like as you were saying, Rorik, like the build up is the biggest thing, and like the suspense. But I think what's the best thing is having an ability that they have to figure out even after the initial things. Like if it's a dragon, it's like what's it going to do? If it breathes lightning or fire or does something, it's like, oh, okay, that's what it has to do. It's terrifying, it's damaging. But I think what is really important for an encounter, full stop, not just a monster, is something about the character, the encounter, that is special that they have to figure out, because it's like that fear, the surprise, the suspense, everything about it is just ramped up to 11, and you're immediately just panicking.
Well, now I'm concerned about being a player in one of your games.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Don't worry about it. Come on down and we'll have fun. Yeah, by the way, Des, I need to talk to you about something about my character, but that will be later.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, yeah. Joe is going to be taking over the Animite Tale one shots for us once a month, and now I'm worried because I'm a player. So, but Rorik, same question. So, what has been your the best surprise monster you've ever encountered, or most surprising to you? A giant cat.
My GM really hasn't thrown anything like that at me, but I have created a few of those, and I do have one that I'm especially fond of.
Okay, what's that one?
I forgot the name of it.
Is it a warehouse?
No, it's not a warehouse. But warehouse would be a very good one. I'm saving that because I
okay. Well, answer this one first, and then you've been teasing us with this warehouse for like a whole 2 days. So after Dan answers this question, you need to answer the warehouse question.
Let's just call this one a stalker. Okay. It's something to that effect. If I could just fucking lantern should be in there somewhere. Somebody's weird. I was gonna control F through my notes, but Discord's being weird. I keep all my notes on a part of my server. Okay, so let's just call it a stalker.
Okay.
Now the initial idea is I want to create my take on the mimic. I want to take the idea of the mimic, something that draws you in and then tries to kill you. But I don't want anyone saying like, oh, that's just based off the mimic. No, I want my version of it. So first thing first, what draws people in? People in need, money, food. So I thought I picked the one that I felt was the most challenging because I feel I could create the most interesting design from that. And the answer being people in need. So okay, it's a shapeshifter. Wow, that's never been done before. So I decided, okay, you know what? It's not a shapeshifter, but it is, but it's not like it doesn't really take the full form of a person. Instead, it takes their silhouette. It's like this massive tentacles that can reshape itself into your shape. But how does that work? I mean,
yeah.
So it's shaped like you. You can't freaking tell. It emits a cloud of fog and surrounds itself by it constantly. And it has like this little glowing orb that it holds. It has like electric powers, and so that's how it kind of powers this orb, kind of like an anglerfish. Okay. So imagine an anglerfish made of tentacles that can shape itself in any shape it wants, and it eats brains. And through those brains, it can mimic human speech, but it does not understand it. So it only answers in simple responses. Subconsciously, subconsciously, it will understand that. Help me. It understands that will bring people, but it doesn't really speak that language. Part of the coolness about that is that you're literally responding to something that speaks your language but does not understand it. There's something very eerie about that. And one of the cool things about this thing is that it can travel and it can inhabit populated areas. This is a monster that can infiltrate a city, and no one would be the wiser because it's always surrounded in this fog. And by the time you approach it, it transforms. It has like talons on its tentacles, and it's just drawing you in and just sucking out your brains. Um,
Oh,
it's one of my
jeez.
yeah, it's one
Yeah,
of
it's
my favorite,
terrifying.
it's one of my favorite
That's so
monsters.
cold.
One of my favorite things about it is that there is no divining what this thing is. Even if there are mechanics to do that, I will find ways to circumvent them. Because the whole point of this monster is that you don't know it's a monster until you get on it. You're supposed to use this monster as a way of scaring the shit out of your players. So like if someone had a
Excellent.
magic detection skill, I would just make the fog anti-magical, whatever stops that from working.
Yep.
Because the fun of this monster isn't an epic battle. It's like I haven't put much thought into how strong it should be, but it shouldn't be super hard to take down. What I find more interesting is that this is a monster you can just happen upon. Like it's contrary to my original philosophy. What monster do you just happen upon and it's already interesting? This is that monster. And that's what I love so much about this thing. And I figure, I guess the juveniles probably imitate little kids, and they're carrying like little gas lamps. I need to think of a name that relates to the lantern because that's kind of a big deal for it. Maybe sometimes it has like little glowing eyes because its tentacles or whatever is surrounding its face, and it's like mimicking a whimpering animal.
Best way to name it is probably come up with either a name based on, as you said, the lantern aesthetic or the fog aesthetic, and either look up a different word meaning it, like either in a thesaurus or in a different language. Like that's how I saw
a different language.
There is a name I really love, but I don't want to use because it's connected to contentious politics. But I love the name gaslighter because the term actually means to make people question themselves. And for a creature that's meant to confuse you, that's exactly what it is. And it literally has like a gas lamp thing going with it. So I may end up calling it that. I may end up being like, you know what? Fuck the politics. I own this one now. And one of the really cool things about this creature is you can use it to prey on the personalities of your actual party. You decide what shape it takes. If you have an animal lover in the group, you make it a whimpering animal. If you have someone who cares for children, you make it a child. And a child lost in the fog is like, mommy. Who's gonna
yeah, no. That's not creepy at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many
getting some Doctor Who flashbacks.
Yeah, it feels kind of Doctor Who-ish, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Actually, I feel like if that isn't already a thing, it will be. Need to jump on it now, man. Need to jump on it now.
I'm making it. It's on one of my long list of monsters. So like every now and then I just throw out another idea and I make it. I also have this one called I'm just gonna go on this for a short stint. It was my first kind of scary-ish monster. It's called an Umbraglim. The idea is those eyes they show in the shadows of old 1920s cartoons?
Yes.
What if that was a monster? Like just not like a monster in the dark. What if that the eyes and the darkness were the monster?
Oh gosh.
So I created this thing called an Umbraglim, which is basically it's a
light in the dark.
It's like a gem that glows in the dark and it looks like an eye. And I think maybe it has like a little eye pattern in it. And its body is like a mass of shadow. It's obviously they live in caves. They're fearful of the light. But the thing is the darker it is, the more dangerous it becomes because these things will come at you in mass and they'll swarm. And before you know it, you're just surrounded by all these glowing eyes and just fucking tendrils of black darkness will just spike you. So It's very dangerous in the right situation, but very easily defeated. It's meant to be. It's very much in the vein of something that draws you in. But here's the cool thing: their bodies reactively, subconsciously, beyond their control, move in accordance with the light to look like shadows. So, like, if you have a torch, and you move it around, their body, it just looks like a shadow cast from the gem. So the idea is that there's no reason a player wouldn't go over and just try and, well, they'd be cautious, but
Yeah.
okay. After the 30 minutes of debating about what to do with the gem,
Yeah.
the moment someone grabs it, the shadow will reflexively recoil against them and try and attack them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't super happy with that idea. I think it's cool, but I like, some people like to settle with their monsters right around there. I like my monsters to be like a gourmet meal. I everything about the experience has to be really cool. So I'll workshop that one a bit more and make it a little more interesting.
Sorry, I'm writing down a note.
I was going to say, what kind of notes are you writing down there?
No.
I mean, for me, part of my job for this game is actually not only just obviously monsters, but it's also superpowers and how people use them, and stuff like that. And because of that, I can then translate all of those into creatures. Like, for instance, we actually have an NPC who's actually a creature called Brain, and he is a parrot who has supernatural intelligence, and he can talk.
Aww.
And he's basically just like the parrot from Aladdin. He can talk. he can do all of this weird things. And he's basically, but he's, instead of being a friend of a villain, he's actually a friend of a guy who's basically like the head of this like scholar organization. And he's like the jokes that are always played between these two characters is that the guy that who's the head of this organization also has supernatural intelligence, but considering that he's a human, he always states that they're like, oh, since he's a superhuman, he has human intelligence to begin with, and then he's got this ability that grants him incredible supernatural intelligence. It's like, yeah, like the joke was that, like, yeah, no, you are intelligent, absolutely. You have the ability of human speech. You can understand almost any language. However, that's as far as you go. You are a bird. You are, the abilities that you have are just the breadth of what I can do. And it's like the usual retort for the bird is like, exactly. And so that's why I'm here, to learn more. And I loved making that bird because he was just there for comedy. He has like no capability of strength. He's a bird. He's a parrot, for crying out loud. He's not very big and he can't do anything, but he's one of my favorite creatures that I've ever made, because that he actually literally has a personality. And he's brilliant in so many ways because of the way that I've built him to not be a very useful companion. He's like a defective helper, but he's just sort of there. He can fly, so obviously he can help you with bird's eye views and communications. He's got intelligence enough to actually understand human languages. In beta, there are 2 to 3 languages. So therefore, since he can understand all of them, he can actually talk to any of them. And since he's also an actual animal, he can also talk to any of the bird species as well. So he's got a large variation of being able to help people, but it's all to do with basically intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. He has no capabilities in being able to help people fight. And even then, like, again, his personality can sometimes get in the way, but that's the whole point. Like, it's supposed to be a funny creature. Is that sort of thing. But yeah, encounters aren't just like based on like the bad things, like the monsters and the creatures and everything like that. Encounters don't have to just be obviously bad enemies. Like, for instance, like it can be a unique experience, like with Brain, like with the Umbra Golem. You've got like these weird special things that just really work out for your players to sort of experience a strange new world. Like, I'm really annoyed that we never got to do this. My cousin and I were going back and forth with like the backstory one of his characters, and we came up with an island called Cibo. And it's basically an entire island based on like an Italian ideal of like they actually are the greatest cuisine based island in the entire world. It's
makes me hungry.
I know, right?
it's beautiful. It's natural, and there are very little superhumans and other creatures on there. The town is made up of like I think it's like 5 to 7 or maybe even like 8 buildings, and about like 90% of them are food based and or alcohol based or at least drink based, and the other one is like a church, and the rest of the buildings around those are actually just like houses for like houses and homes and stuff like that. And that's like basically a quarter of the island. The rest of the island is all open, free land that you can go and like explore and find like mutated creatures that have like that are being used for food, that are being hunted, that are and stuff like that. And they've got all sorts of plant life that are also part of their cuisine, and it's just really well done. We made that, and we never got to do it, and it was really annoying because it was going to be part of the campaign known as the 8 Seas of Beta, where it's like you travel around the world and you get to explore all of these different islands and funnily enough, fight pirates and stuff like that. So that was really cool. We did so much, and we never got to do that campaign. It was so annoying. Yeah, that was a shame.
So, going to buildings and monsters. So, what are we going to talk about? Warehouse.
Okay, let's talk about Warehouse.
Yeah.
This is actually a good way of demonstrating my process. Often my monsters don't start as I want to make a monster that does this. No, my monsters often start as a pun. I'm not kidding.
Excellent.
Like some of my best monsters usually start off as puns. We have one for our show that's probably gonna end up being a mascot, Hampire.
Hampire?
Hampire.
Hampire.
Exactly what it sounds like.
Hampire.
And like he just has one of those designs. It's like when Studio Ghibli created Totoro. He's our Totoro. But like you just one look at him, you're like, oh, that's awesome. And we're gonna make him a character though. He's not just gonna be and he has a father who lives in I haven't gotten the okay from my GM on this, but I really want this. His father owns a fine dining magical establishment called Spell's Kitchen. His name's Gordon Hamsey.
Yes.
And they have a contentious relationship because Gordon feels his son struggles too much with his identity. Am I a vampire? Am I a pig? It's like, just fucking cook some food, asshole. And Gordon Hamsey's establishment, it's nothing but food puns. The waiters are all possessed watermelons. We call them waitermelons. On every table, instead of salt and pepper, there's a branch, and you twist it to get branch dressing. It's just food puns galore.
See, now you have to be part of one of our one-shots for Animite Tales because you'd fit in so well with all the puns and the pop culture references.
I love puns. Anyway, so that's how Warehouse started. I was thinking, how can I make a house great, but not just do what Monster House did? And I was like, okay, what's a good name? Warehouse, awesome. Werewolf House, perfect. So the idea was, how do you infect a house with lycanthropy? It's a fucking house.
Yeah.
So I went through a few ideas, and the one I really liked was, okay, what if it's possessed by the ghost of a werewolf?
That's a good idea. I didn't think of that.
And so you get the whole Monster House aspect of it being able to control things. And before I get too deep into this, I want to explain why I start my process like this. I start my process usually with a pun or a catchy name because I want the monster to be catchy and memorable. Like, you wouldn't remember mimics half as much if they were called copycat chests. Like,
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
catchiness is important to a great monster. It's what keeps it memorable. And like, even so many great monsters and great ideas fall by the wayside because you just don't have catchy names. And so that's kind of a concession that I accept. And I honestly, I like working around that. I find it to be an interesting and fun challenge. So got the name. I got the idea. It's a house infected with lycanthropy. From there, the important thing is to not just make it a joke. It has to have real depth to it. So I started thinking of a way to kind of construct a narrative around this house, because warehouses are not a thing. It's not a species. It's not a common thing. This is a single unique creature you can encounter. So it has everything Monster House has. It can, control itself. It can move its furniture. It has like a rug tongue. It's a house that has windows for eyes. Only I wanted mine to be able to move around. So like it can like manipulate its wood out to like create arms and stumpy legs, and it can move around.
Cool.
So this is a thing that can actually chase you down.
Oh crap.
So okay, from there I was like, okay, what's it weak against? Well, silver would be too quick and easy, and this deserves more than that. So okay, silver works, but you have to go inside it, and you have to melt the silver in the chimney of the house. But here's the cool thing: if you enter the house from the inside, the interior becomes kind of like a single cell of a dungeon, and there are different threats you can encounter inside of it. So you have two different options of how to fight this thing. You don't know that, but that's what's going to happen if you encounter this thing. If you fight it from the inside, the fight is completely different. If you fight it from the outside, the fight is completely different. So the main ways I thought to kill this thing were fire, smelting silver in the fireplace, and my personal favorite, low-income neighborhoods. It is a house. It is weak to low-income neighborhoods. And
you just bring it to a low-income neighborhood, and it just
you lure it to a poor village, and it suddenly feels weak. Now, that's not technically the weakness. But I found that so fucking funny that I wanted to find a way to justify it.
Oh gosh. There's a tear in my eye. That was funny.
All right, so now I can't
just imagining this.
I know.
I can already hear my brother, because he is in charge of a lot of the names and a lot of the puns, and I can already hear him watching this back and going, "Yes!"
Could you imagine?
Yes!
Could you imagine Will and Rourke getting together? The madness of that campaign.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Okay. Getting back to the warehouse.
Okay.
The thing is, I actually want to put this in my campaign, but we're a bit more serious than that, so I can't actually say it's weak. It's too cartoony. I would do it in a one shot, but for my seriousness of my campaign, here's what I want. I want that to be a weakness, but I don't want that to be really what the weakness is. Mm-hmm. I just want to be able to tell people, yeah, the actual idea is that it's weak to low-income neighborhoods. So the way I got that was by devising a story for it. And essentially, it's not totally fleshed out, but basically the idea is that the lycanthrope who he was the previous owner of the house. He was betrayed by the village that he lived in, and for the rest of his life he lived a contentious relationship with that village. It's where his family died, it's where his wife died. To be there brings him great pain and sorrow, and it destabilizes him, his ghostly presence. So the idea is that if you lured the warehouse over to a place of a great emotional pain for it, the spirit would suddenly get sporadic, and it lose its grip on the house. And so from there you could either destroy the house, you could exorcise the spirit. Oh, by the way, you could actually exorcise this thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you could also do an exorcism, which I would find very interesting, because I'd love to see a house vomiting green everywhere. And a few ideas were thrown around. Some people suggested that I give the house fur. I'm not so sure I want to do that. Like maybe it's
carpets.
Carpeting, like shag carpeting. Like that's an interesting idea. It just bursts out from the windows and
either that or all of like
that's how it transforms.
Either that or just all of its panels just like flip over, and it's actually all just carpets. Just it all flips over, like all the walls just like flip over, and it's actually just.
Here's what I want. I just want to take the panels of the wood and just flick them out a bit. That way, it's not wood, but it looks spiky. And the window things that form these little roofs, they go a bit spikier, and it looks like wolf ears.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You need to draw this, Rorik. At this point, it's just This is phenomenal.
I love Warehouse. Warehouse is one of my favorite creations. I got a few more that there's this one that I was working on called the Corpse Willow. How did it work? I think essentially the idea was that it appeared to be a tree, but instead it was the body of a corpse is buried in the wrong kind of ground. There's some chemicals in there. I don't know what's down there, but whatever it is, as it dies, its arm, after it's dead, its arm slowly inches out from the ground more and more every year, and a mouth forms in the hand, the palm of the hand.
Oh my gosh.
The fingers all contract back like tentacles until it eventually and then like fake leaves form on it, and eventually it looks like a willow. So the idea is like it's like a very creepy whomping willow.
Yeah.
Like the tendrils come out and like they draw you in to the hand. It's like and if you actually dig it, if you would actually dig it up, the base of this thing would actually just be the body of a human. Except maybe there'd be like a huge bulge in the arm where it stores its nutrients. I don't. The design of it was just really interesting to me, so that's where the idea kind of evolved from.
Well, we were getting we're getting close to 4:30, which I mean, I kind of don't want to stop this conversation because I'm having a lot of fun with it. but we will stop here. The only thing I have to promote is our Discord, which I am putting that in the chat right now. For those of you who are watching, the 12D20 has started a community. Thank you to Rorik for this wonderful idea. So I put the link in Twitch Discord or in the Twitch chat right now. So go ahead and check out our videos, our talk with the players, talk with me, Des, and Joe's on there too. You can ask us questions about the videos, watch some of the videos. You can even chat with us. We even put some channels up. You can actually, if you catch us online and you just want to have a chit chat with us about, Joe's wonderful Animite tales, or my horrible ideas of tricking my characters into doing things. But
or if Des, if you wanna put Bill on there, you can then get any of the fans to then ask any different ways to find interesting ways of using one shots for my brother to torture me whenever I play one shots.
I will send this link to Will then, because yes, he has wonderful ideas. And then also Rorik is on there too. He's his name is Item Pouch on there, but his real name is Rorik. So you chat with him if you want to create any monsters that you've heard about today, or you want to know more about different things, because Rorik loves monsters, loves creating them. That's why he chose this topic for today when I asked him what do you want to talk about. But yeah,
so good.
Check out our Discord channel, talk with us, let us know who you want for us to try to reach out to for this live stream as well. Rorik, we would love to have you back another time. Our show is going to be on Sundays now. But yeah, if there's any topics that you want to talk about and you want to do a live stream with me and Joe, we'd love to have you back.
Sure. I mean, I don't want to ask to be the next one because there's other people for that. But I'd like to. But Sundays work out great because I'm actually available Sundays.
Cool. But Joe, do you have anything you'd like to promote before I hand it over to Rorik?
Patreon, please. Please, Patreon. That's about it. The one extra thing I guess I could say is I will be playing as a character in Des's one shot, as you said earlier. I will be showing off a very unique thing that I will be showing off at some point for it. But also, just if anyone wants to hear any weird, wacky stuff that's happening, check on over to Patreon and also on Twitter. We at the Betarians.
And that's we for all of us Americans. That's BET. The Betarians. But for how to pronounce it properly, Betarians. Go ahead. Because we had people ask how to pronounce that because I pronounce it. Or how to spell it, because I pronounce it differently than you. I'll say Betarians, you say Betarians.
It's because it comes from the word beta, and so it's the BETA. So that's where Betarians comes from. and we just came up with it mostly because it's like, oh, we really love testing this game, we really love doing all sorts of stuff with it, and to be honest, it feels like it's always in a beta. It feels like it's always in a beta, but we love it. We love it very much, and we want to share it with the world. We want to be able to make it so that people can play a game where they can feel like they can play as any kind of character. And yes, we do have it based on superpowers, but very soon after we finish the superpowers book and it's out there for people to purchase, we'll be making one to do with magic, and then after that we'll be doing stuff to do with homebrew and also the realm of the gods. So yeah, we have many different things for everyone to have a look at, and we're making it so that then people can like do anything. Like I did a one shot at one point where everyone just played as characters from video games, and like recently I made a character based on like an anime and stuff like that. It's like none of them have to be specifically to do with what we've already placed in the game.
Yeah.
But if you want to make your own character and your own little world and your own little adventure, then again, this system is perfect for that.
Yeah, that's definitely why I chose it for, and that's the system we're going to be using for all of our one shots is the Animite Tales, because it does have its structure, it does have its rules, but the creativity that the DM and the players can have in it, like, I love it. So that's the system we're going to be using. And July 21st, as Joe mentioned, he has a character that I can't wait for him to play as well. And Aiden will be there too. We all are going to be representing different countries, or Hispanic countries. So we'll wait until July 21st to announce who is representing what country. But Rorik, do you have anything to promote, or what would you like to say about Item Pouch and your team?
Nope. Yeah, like I don't have anything to promote. Okay. Item Pouch is a YouTube channel. It hasn't launched yet. Well, it exists, but the show for it hasn't launched yet. Show is going to be called Table Team. You could basically think of it like a YouTuber's Harmon Quest. It's an animated campaign, or rather, a campaign accompanied by animation. It runs on a custom system we created for it, which runs super fast and cinematic. Like, honestly, what happens in 4 hours of D&D, we do in 40 minutes. And it just, the combat flows so good. And I've spent a year on this so far. It's a huge passion project for mine. I fought tooth and nail to get this thing started. Everyone told me it wasn't going to work, and then I told them to go fuck themselves, and I made it work.
That's how you do it. That's how you get shit done.
I don't know particularly when we'll launch. It'll be probably within a month or two. That would be my guess. But check us out on Twitter at Item Pouch. We own that social media tag everywhere, but that's where we're active right now. You can go there to find development notes, images. There is a lot of stuff for the development of this show there, and I really suggest you have a look at it, because a lot of work's gone into it, and I'm sure it's something tabletop players would appreciate.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much, and again, thank you, Rorik, for being our special guest today. And I'm going to start planning for our next one that you have with us.